Oh, good afternoon for another round of this MERLIN webinar. It's the 25th MERLIN webinar, and well, I'd like to say a heartily welcome to all of you listening. My name is Sebastian Birk, and well, I'm not your usual host. You probably know that Jan is doing it. But today I have the pleasure to be the moderator and introduce to you Phyllis and Ildikó, who will today talk about a very interesting project, in my view, a project called EcoAdvance that has the mission to make us better understand what are the success factors of freshwater restoration across Europe, and a project that really dives deeply into success stories or champions, into elements on the ground that make the things happen, and that make the things happen successfully. And well, I have had the pleasure of being with this project every now and then and listening to what they found out. And today, I think Phyllis and Ildikó will present us much more about this interesting project. And I can only say the floor is yours, Phyllis and Ildikó. And well, I'm very delighted to listen to what you have to say.
Thank you so much. I assume that you hear me. And particularly thanks for that very generous introduction. And I thank all of you for taking the time to be with us today. We're here to present on the progress of the EcoAdvance project. First, I'm going to give a brief introduction in terms of what the project is, the data we've gathered, and then focus on our products and how you might be able to use them. So what is EcoAdvance? Well, it's a coordination and support project. It has two primary components. The first component is that we're trying to formulate, as Sebastian says, what makes freshwater restoration projects successful. And then the second component is to share the experiences of the people who make it successful in each member state who are showing the way. So looking at what makes things successful, can we define success in a silver bullet way? We know exactly what it makes something successful. Well, actually, as we learned from Dr. Carrie Whelan in MERLIN webinar number 5, it's pretty complicated. It's not simple. We can't really know exactly what success is. And in fact, it's clear from the 2021 diagram from the European Environment Agency that the status of water bodies in the EU, although we've all been working for freshwater restoration for many years, is not what we'd like it to be. So in formulating what is success, we did a lot of research. The key data we used is the assessment frameworks, and we did a very extensive literature review. We looked country by country for the member states. We looked at many peer-reviewed articles on themes and various scientific reports. And then country by country, we looked at river basin management plans in every country, at the evaluations of those plans, at the reporting of the implementation of those plans, and of course, at the other kinds of literature related to the activities of freshwater restoration in terms of their various reports on climate change and biodiversity. And in each member state, we also collaborated with a variety of groups, nature network hubs, networks, projects, and initiatives like MERLIN, the ECRR, and mission projects, including Dahlia, EcoDali, and Danube for All. And so far, with our document review, we made a preliminary prone to success checklist. We've piloted some showcases. We have an online survey, and we have preliminary results. And I think the most interesting piece of this presentation will be Ildikó's report of preliminary results. And so I'm going to turn it over to Ildikó.
Thank you very much, Phyllis. And I also would like to thank you to the host and to all of you who are listening to us. So just to put the survey, which I'm going to talk about in the next few minutes, in a little bit of context. Basically, the aim of our survey and the whole consultation process is to create the foundation of the EcoAdvance Prone to Success checklist, which is going to be one of our basic outcomes. And this is done through 3 phases. As Phyllis already mentioned, we are having or had an initial stakeholder consultation, which created or resulted in a preliminary list of success factors and showcase recruitment. Then there is the ongoing online survey, which I would like to talk about the most. And after all, as long as it's finalized, we are going to evaluate, validate the results, and turn it to the final project outcomes. So just a bit of the number of responses. We had the initial consultation, which was a more simple and shorter one with 82 responses, but now we are already having 159 responses for our online survey. And just this one slide about the preliminary survey. As I said, the aim of that was to a little bit of identify what could be the most important factors and barriers to successful freshwater restoration. So perhaps what might be good to highlight here as contributing factors to success is the ecological improvements and the sustainability of the results in the long term, but also very important, the societal success, basically local stakeholders accepting and supporting what we are doing there as restoration. And if you look at the other graphs showing the barriers, well, you will see the highest number of positive responses at lack of funding, which is kind of obvious. That's always a limiting factor. But at the same time, you can see that things like local planning or different stakeholders' interest can also be barriers. But as I said, they can also be contributing factors if once you have these stakeholder groups on board. So these are the 2 sides of the same coin. We can say that. Okay, and now going to the survey, which we designed after we had these preliminary consultation results. We used those results to design the more detailed survey to look a bit more into these factors. First question was, how important is community engagement in a successful restoration project, and how exactly should it contribute? Then we wanted to see and understand how much focusing on ecosystem condition and ecosystem services helps successful projects. Then we wanted also to see the role of regulations and policies in success. And lastly, we wanted to see the tools and guidances. What are there out there? How much they are used, and what perhaps is still needed. So as for community engagement, here you can see the way we designed this part of the survey is that we formulated, let's say, call them statements, and the respondents had to select to which level they agree or disagree to a certain statement. And what you can see here is that basically the great majority of respondents agree or strongly agree with the fact that engaging stakeholders and understanding their conflicts contributes to the success of restoration projects. Also, I have to say that community participation from the very beginning, community education and transparent local planning process involving the local stakeholders also are something which they think that very much can contribute to the success. But how should we involve them? That was another question. And here we can say that the personal involvement is key. So the personal connection to the locals. The best thing, according to our respondents, is going to the field, really visiting the site with the stakeholders, but also workshops got a lot of positive responses. Perhaps because on workshops, you can have different stakeholder groups together and allow them to discuss, potentially even resolve their conflicts. You let that possible. But also the bilateral meetings are thought to be effective. Okay, the next topic was the ecosystem condition and ecosystem services. So firstly, we wanted to see, do the respondents think that setting goals in terms of ecosystem services and ecosystem condition would contribute to the success of restoration? And the great majority of our respondents do think that yes, that helps. Also, this is connected with the thing that using reference values in these terms would also be, or can also be, very much useful and effective. And how, but just can you go a little bit back? Because on the right-hand side, you have the other graph showing how these reference values are set. And here I might highlight that literature data or scientific data from the site are important, but also very important, a little bit even more important, is the knowledge co-production with stakeholders. So you would also need, besides your scientific data, the data of stakeholders or different sectors, and combine those. Yes, and if we talk about ecosystem services, the question arises that what sort of ecosystem services we would need to set as goals. And while all of the 4 classes of ecosystem services got a lot of positive responses, the highest was given to the regulating services, which I think is of no surprise, thinking that fresh waters are related to a lot of very important regulating services, such as water flow regulation and water quality regulation, flood control and drought control. These are very important. And also from the communication point of view, that needs to be used, in my opinion, when you design and implement freshwater restoration. But then if you see the figure on the right-hand side, you will see that despite that fact, almost half of the respondents do not use ecosystem service assessments as part of their work, which might reflect a potential knowledge gap here. Okay, the third topic was the regulations and policies. Here we wanted to see how much or do national laws help restoration projects. And actually, as for the national laws, the results a bit of mixed, because we got a lot of yeses and also a lot of no's, with a very few don't knows. So here also we would like to go later on more in detail and try to set correlations, what's behind these. But if you see the second column, the second bar, which is the nature restoration law, there the respondents were much more optimistic, although there you have a lot of don't knows as a choice, which is understandable. That's a new thing. Still, the picture is much more optimistic. So there are nice high expectations towards nature restoration, I can say. And also we asked for EU policies. You can see the Water Framework Directive, Biodiversity Strategy, and the Common Agricultural Policy. And we asked them break down to their different components, like requirements. And perhaps what might be interesting to highlight here, besides that almost all of these components got a lot of positive replies or responses, that 2 especially got a lot of yeses, I can say. And 1 is the setting defined water quality targets on the Water Framework Directive, while the other one, sorry, I just can't see. The other is the sustainable agricultural practices under common agricultural policy. And actually, I was wondering why exactly these two ones. And my idea, which is not yet proved, but my idea is that because they are more general, they don't focus on certain protected areas or networks, but they really, if they are implemented, they might have a really general and wide effect on the landscape. Okay, and finally, the tools and guidances. Perhaps what we can see here, that having demonstration sites and data from somewhere else proving that the method is effective is important, but even more important to have data from your site, like history data. And also, if you see the graph on the right-hand side, it's about the predictive models. Do they use them, and do they think they are useful and contribute to the success? And there, you can see that half of the respondents do use models, but about a third of them might use, but don't really know how to. So there, I think we can identify or see another knowledge gap. And now the way forward, just a few words more. Our survey is still open until the end of October. You can find it under this website. And you are all welcome to fill it in. Yes. So as I said, once we close the survey, we have all the final pool of responses, we would like to evaluate it. We would like to set, at least we hope to set a deeper correlation between different factors and focus on the highlighted factors, barriers, and identified knowledge gaps. Once we have these results, we would review them with experts and then integrate them into the project deliverables, such as the final Prone to Success checklist, thematic showcases, and we aim to publish a scientific paper also. So that was basically my summary of the survey process. And we are happy to hear your suggestions.
Well, thank you very much, Ildikó. Just to kind of go through the workflow, we close the survey at the end of the month, then comes analysis, our final PDAS checklist, and showcases. Let me tell you a little bit about our Prone to Success checklist and the tool that's being developed. We call it an itemized list of factors that, when considered in the context of specific circumstances, could make a project prone to success. And as a corollary, we're developing a tool that can help visualize the impact and the success of the projects based on context factors, process factors, and communication-based factors. Developing this checklist to further pinpoint and organize our showcases, which is the second piece of our project, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, and find the people who demonstrate how the use of these factors to advance freshwater ecosystem restoration and overcome the challenges it presents. So the other half of our project is that people make the difference. It takes all kinds, successful people from a whole variety of educational backgrounds, making many contributions that ripple unforeseen sometimes, but definitely substantial. There's room for all kinds of innovative and creative contributions, whether it's making new data systems, whether it's new models, or whether it's an actual in-ground restoration. Of all of the people who we spoke to, and we spoke to many, most mentioned that listening to others in both structured and unstructured ways was the key to finding the solution that they were looking for. So our people focus brings people to center stage. And we are creating showcases from every country, freshwater champions, which we consider the folks who are drive innovative there we go. Wait, one more. there we go, who drive innovative programs to support and promote the policies, data systems, and funding mechanisms that enable freshwater restoration, star scientists who research and innovate the foundations, the models, and the discoveries that move freshwater restoration forward, the did-its, and they're the people who plan and implement freshwater restoration projects, and finally, the recreating freshwater communities that galvanize their local resources to protect and improve their environment. Now, we're doing this on a country-by-country basis, and it's not really meant to be representative per se, but much more, it's meant to be inspiring, hopefully empowering, so that others, fellow scientists, restorationists, government policy makers, implementers, and students can find easier pathways to impact and success and feel empowered that their individual contributions can and will make a difference. Here's one, Mark Horton from Ireland. And what we've done is we've given people an opportunity to say it in their own words, to tell folks what lessons they learned and what recommendations they'd like to make for others. So, in essence, we're looking for nominations of people if you have some. We're upgrading our pilot showcases that we made originally and that are on our website now to improve the search capabilities. But it's really a roadmap for adaptive management. Just think of EcoAdvance as a support platform with signposts, even useful shortcuts, straight from people like you. Techniques and lessons that they've learned and are sharing so you can avoid and extricate from pitfalls on your road to advancing freshwater restoration. So I want to thank you for listening from the whole EcoAdvance team, and we appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks very much, Phyllis and Ildikó. That was a very interesting talk, and it was kind of a advertising talk for the project that you're doing, which makes me quite curious also on the next steps and the outcomes that you outlined. But before that, let me check in parallel also the questions that have arrived. And I see one question here from Iphigenia, and she asks, is the nature restoration law is a very new one. How accurate is the response? And I suppose the response to your questionnaire for its implementation and its effectiveness.
Well, actually, I think that was one of the items that was very interesting, because our second round of survey really was right after the law was passed in June. So we've basically been taking responses and looking at, as Ildikó mentioned, optimism, not necessarily saying that this is going to be the be all and the end all, but clearly, as Ildikó showed from the graphs, national programs are considered sometimes helpful, but there is a lot of hope that the whole Europe Commission program for the nature restoration law will be more helpful to make projects successful. Hopefully that answers your question.
So thanks, Phyllis, for this. I also have a couple of questions at hand here, but it would be great also from the dear audience if you could bring up your questions into the chat, and then Ildikó and Phyllis have a chance also to reply to your questions. My question that I'd like to start with is very much related to, well, looking back and looking into the present, regarding the Water Framework Directive and also the impact of the Water Framework Directive's implementation on European freshwaters. And when we can see, we had three implementation cycles passed, and there is not so much of a significant improvement of what you see. So I would, well, if I would be like the bad guy, I would say, people don't know what are the success factors for freshwater restoration, because otherwise you would see that from the results of the Water Framework Directive assessment.
Well, I'd have to agree with you. And I think that's one of the reasons they had the call in 2022 for this project, because I think that what they looked at in terms of quantitative, specific results were not necessarily what they had hoped for. And I think one of the things that we've learned through this project, or at least I think we've learned, is that not everything is in those quantitative results, and that yes, there are some lack of acceleration or some slow in some areas, but really every step forward is a step forward. And as I think all of us know, the conditions that we started a project with aren't the conditions that we have today. 2 years later, as a matter of fact, it's a kind of interesting nature restoration law. When we started the project, it was maybe on the horizon, maybe, but not really. And lo and behold, here we are with a whole new situation. So I think that is one aspect. And the other aspect I will give you from my personal perspective, and I can't say this is a project perspective per se, but one of the things that I've learned, I think, is that people are really important. And we don't do as significant a job in helping show people as important. And I just say this from the data. I am responsible for looking at many projects and looking at all those documents from Water Framework Directive and the plans and you have to go 7 layers down to find the name of the guy who wrote that, whose actual pen went to paper. And to the extent that we help people see their importance in this process, I think we will find that it works better. And that if we can name names, so to speak, and that is one of the functions of our project, to help people see real people doing these things. I don't know how many people I've spoken to who say, oh, I get up in the morning and I think, does this make any difference? And yes, it does. And I think that's what we have to, that to me is a very important message that the project can give.
Phyllis, just on this note, before I get to Carrie's question here in the chat, I understand that there's a lot about inspiring and empowering that you are looking to for and try to raise these elements. And I'm wondering at this point, inspiring and empowering means reaching out to the right people and maybe to the guys waking up in the morning and think what can this day make a difference at all. What is the right path for disseminating this energy, so to say? You know, what is it? Can it be? And sorry, I'm also part of the MERLIN project, saying it's just another project. You know, it's just another 4 years that you contribute something, and then you go on with other things. Is it about merging these different activities like we are doing here already, or is it like to establish like a central platform to make this dissemination? So what is the best way of getting the message out and inspire the people?
I guess the way I think about it is it's a culture. It's a culture change. It's talking to people about their individual responsibility and their individual roles. And in every project, moving the names forward and the pictures of the people who worked on them forward. And I'm hoping that to the extent that changes how we do things in a cultural way, that will help integrate all that message, because it's not a message that takes a platform. We can't have a people platform, you know, to some extent, EcoAdvance with 135 showcases will be, so to speak, a people platform. But that's not really the only place it has to be. It has to be in all of the projects that we do, in all of the reports that we do, showing people as an important, as key to getting this done.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and maybe one element from our side. You probably know that we are working on the MERLIN Academy, and here we are also thinking about opening it towards an academy that helps member states or the people working there to implement the the nature restoration law, for instance. And here it's also very much about empowerment and inspiration. So at one point, we might even think about discussing how we can merge your outcomes with inputs to this academy.
That would be great, Sebastian. As a matter of fact, we've been talking with the rewilding people, and they have a rewilding academy, and they're planning on using profiles as part. And to the extent that we can integrate it into other toolboxes, I think that really will help achieve what we're trying to do.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks. Yeah, let's come to Carrie's question, and this is about the models. Question about predictive models or tools. For the people who said they are using models, do you know what types of things are being used? Well, she was missing the beginning, but I think you didn't go into that during your talk. So I don't know, Ildikó, do you have more insights here?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we asked also open text questions, what kind of tools, guidances, and also about the monitoring frameworks, what kind of methods they use. And yes, we have a lot of responses for that, but this is under evaluation currently, because we have translated this survey into a couple of languages, and the free text replies what we got here are completely diverse. So you have everything from detailed data descriptions to like 4-character abbreviations, which you would like to find out what refers to. So it's still a lot of work, but definitely we would like to, our aim is to look at all of these, translate them to English, figure out what those methods, guidelines, tools, models that they refer to mean, and then we would like to classify them and see the pattern, what is used most. We also got the MERLIN framework among the responses. So yes, we do have a lot of information of that, and that will definitely be under our project products.
Yeah, thanks. Well, knowing that the term model is used for so many things on this planet, that's something that you will look into later. I actually have a broader question in this context with regard to your use of the term restoration here. And obviously, well, at least I haven't heard it. You didn't mention the term nature-based solution at this point, and that is something that makes, of course, people curious that are in these recent discussions where everybody is talking about nature-based solutions, and the charm of this term nature-based solution is very much because it has this societal value included. So there is no question about what's in it for the people. But you are not addressing this. And I'm wondering, well, you're not using this term. I'm wondering, is it because you consider this concept being separate to what you're investigating, or is it because you got tired of hearing that word too often?
I can tell you from the point of view of the showcases, I'm sure Ildikó might have some additional information, but I think because our project was called freshwater restoration, we kept to that term just simply for convenience. Many of our showcases focus on nature-based solutions. Many of the plans that we reviewed, many of the literature that we reviewed focuses on nature-based solutions. But since we were really looking at the last 20 years, nature-based solutions hasn't been nearly as popular in 2000 as it is today. So I think we kind of said, let's stick with the freshwater restoration. And we've been told also, well, what about rehabilitation? Everything restoration? You know, all of those discussions, I think, on terminology are important, but we kind of got one and stuck to it. Ildikó, did you have some other thoughts?
Perhaps one little thing to add is that we use the term of ecosystem services, and as I mentioned, that the regulating services were highlighted, that those are important also in setting goals. And there I mentioned that the river flow, like flood control, drought control, also the quality regulation, are considered regulating ecosystem services, but also they appear under the umbrella of nature-based solutions. So you have a really big overlap here. So much of it is about which terminology to use for the same thing, or at least part of it. But thanks for the suggestion, because we need to discuss that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this. I do have another question with regard to the character of your respondents. So obviously you were showing interim results. It's not the final results, and maybe you didn't go into any demographics of the respondents yet. But I'm wondering also on a critical note from your side. Having a survey running and anybody can just contribute here. How much of a how confident are you that you're really reaching those who are actually doing the successful work on the ground? Because they often happen to be non-native English speakers. They happen to be not part of a, say, academic research innovation project context, but they are very much doing their successful work in their successful corner of a catchment. And probably these kind of surveys will never reach out to them.
Well, to some extent, I hope we did reach out to them in two ways. First, by translating into 10 languages. We're hoping that we're reaching them. And by clustering with a variety of projects, but those are the project people. I think by our whole process, which took much longer than we wished it had, to go through the local river basin management plans in every member state and all of the evaluations, we're hoping that we caught a network of over 1,000 people, not from projects who we specifically sent this survey to. And frankly, people have asked me, well, I didn't do an in-ground restoration. Are you sure you want me to answer? And my response is, yes, absolutely. Because for people who are involved in freshwater restoration, whether you made the Inspire data system work in your country so that everybody who does freshwater restoration knows what they're talking about, or whether you made an agriculture program that stopped using particular pesticides because they run into the water, or all of those things are significant contributions. And it's not just the people who are kind of in the ground doing a restoration, it's building that whole foundation for making freshwater restoration work.
And if I may add one more information, that we aim to ensure that we reach to the targeted people that in a way that we personally ask them. We sent like thousands, well, not thousands, but certainly hundreds of emails. That's one thing. The other is I just quickly looked up the ratio of the different categories, because in the survey they had to indicate their sector, and our results so far are that like almost 100 of respondents are from the academia, scientists, researchers. About or a bit less than 80 are both from government, national or local, or engineers, consultants, practitioners. That's the second is the three is one under one umbrella, and 60 something is from NGO and civil society. So that's how the sectors are represented in our survey. But as I said, we are seeking for more correlations, and we definitely see the breakdown of results according to these sectors.
Yeah, thanks very much. Very interesting and very promising. And still the survey is ongoing, but people don't have a lot of time. But what was the deadline that you said?
The end of the month.
Oh,
do it
but still a couple of
Do it
weeks
today.
to go.
Do it today.
Yes.
That's the best thing to do.
Exactly.
Today is the best day to do it.
Good, good. Yeah, before I'd like to pose my concluding question to both of you, I saw that Viviane, you had another question sent here through the chat, and it's the private sector, such as financial institutions, was not involved in the survey, or are they a smaller percentage of respondents?
I think when we look at the actual percentage of respondents, we didn't identify funders or financial institutions per se, but we did identify stakeholders who are in civil society or NGOs. And we're hoping that those are probably going to kind of cover the folks who we were able to reach. And we have reached out, as I mentioned, over 1,000 emails, personal emails to individuals to say, hey, look at this survey. It's something that you may be interested in, and we'd love to have you participate.
Yeah, so one final question from my side here.
Bastian,
yeah,
you might have
Astrid, please.
overlooked the question of Nidhi Gopal. She was
I
asking
saw
about-
that, but I understood Ildikó saying that she hasn't looked into the character of models at this point. So
okay.
artificial intelligence models, maybe Ildikó, I answered it without having the right answer here. So please go for it, Ildikó. Is it something you can speak about, whether there are artificial intelligence models used?
Not at the moment. We have to look at the details.
Yeah, so I understood this. Right. So yeah, my last question to both of you individually is if you were to say 3 success factors for successful restoration, what were these 3?
I'll let Ildikó, she's got the data. I'll let her start.
Well, I'm coming from the field of ecosystem services, so let me highlight that. So I think using the methods and setting goals in terms of ecosystem services, that would really, that's the purpose of ecosystem services concept, to bring together different stakeholders and put them around the same table and speak the same language. And so that we are at stakeholders. The second, what I would mention, is actually the stakeholder involvement, which we keep on highlighting, but that's because it's really important. So that without the support of people, you would not be able to alone make a project successful, because they are the ones who live there and use the landscape. And well, I think what I see is that often people who implement such projects are a bit unsure about the methods, what exactly, and would it work? So I would also highlight that there are a lot of guidances available, national ones, EU ones, methodologies, scientific articles and reviews and everything. But something really operational and useful that they can quickly and easily use on, or find a way, find the options which are the best for themselves, to their specific goals. I think that would be very, very much a contributing factor to success.
Thanks, Ildikó. Phyllis, you had some time to think about it.
Yeah, I did, thank God. I guess the first thing I would say is that success changes. I know I've heard of many stories where the first success didn't turn out to be as much the success that people thought it was. We have an experience in our own country where in the 50s, we drained the swamps and thought it was a great success until someone said, where did the wetlands go? And everybody said, bring back the wetlands. And the farmers who then were using that land said, what do you mean? That's our agricultural space. That's how we make our livings. until everybody came to the table and said, okay, let's divide it in half. Half for wetlands and half for agriculture. And that was all fine. And everybody thought it was a great success until the birds actually came back and ate all the produce from the agriculture. And so the success, the great success, didn't turn out to be so successful until they went back and said, okay, adaptive management, what are we going to do? So they said, let's feed the birds. And so they have a tractor that goes and feeds the birds twice a day to make sure that the birds can eat and that they don't eat the agricultural produce. And they decided that that was so successful that they attached a bus, an open air bus. So now they have ecotourism and lots of restaurants and hotels and all kinds of good stuff in the area. So what I would say is it is successful until you stop and say it's a failure. As long as you keep going and keep thinking and keep saying, okay, it didn't work out exactly the way I thought, but why don't I look at it, excuse me, Dr. Whalen, why don't I look at it from out of the box? Why don't I look at it from another perspective and say, how can I make something good from this? And so when I think of the lessons I've learned, and I hope will be transmitted by the project outputs, is that we are a success if we keep working at it.
Thanks very much. Very interesting perspectives here. Yeah, with this in mind, let's close for today. And thank you very much again for your interesting contributions. And as I said before, I'm already looking very much forward to reading and hearing more about what came out in the end. And hopefully we have many, many other chances to exchange again, because our projects, MERLIN and EcoAdvance, are really close together in terms of content and also in terms of the collaboration opportunities we have. So let's close for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having us. And thank you, all of the listeners.
Very, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.